Again, you folks, this is our regular council meeting. If you'll stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Vaughn.
Here.
Kurtz is excused. Hayward.
Here.
Hill.
Yes.
Scharf.
Here.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf, seconded
Second.
by O'Laughlin. All those,
Before you vote, I do have one item to take off the agenda. Under new business, item H, well house rehab project change order. That needs to come off of the agenda for tonight. That'll be on the next meeting.
okay. Then, those of you who made the motion a second, are that okay with you to approve it without that item?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Now is our public comment section. This is the time we set aside for visitors and public comments only on topics of city business other than those listed on tonight's agenda. Please understand the council cannot take any action on your comments at this meeting due to the requirements of the open meeting law, but may do so at a future meeting. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to state their comments, and we thank you for your cooperation. The people who did sign in, your topic is on the setback, of which is on the agenda later. So if you would like to just wait and talk when we have that topic on the agenda, or whether you want to do it now instead, that's up to you. But I have 3 of you listed that way. So,
If it's okay with those of you that signed, I think it would be beneficial for you to wait till the agenda item comes up. Okay. And you will be given an opportunity to address it, so.
so the 3 of you, you want me to give off your names or whatever? Are you all 3 okay to wait and talk about it when we have it on the agenda item itself?
Yeah, there.
Okay, all right. Then will, anybody else that, I guess those are the only 3 that signed in. So next on the agenda is to motion to accept and approve the consent agenda that approves the following. Minutes of the February 26, 2018 regular meeting, Dollar General liquor license ownership change, Dollar General Store 2329 Class B wine permit, Class C beer permit, and Sunday sales liquor license March 1st, 2018 through February 28th, 2019. The Music Station Class B wine permit, Class C beer permit, carry-out beer, Class E liquor license, and Sunday sales liquor license April 29th, 2018 through April 28th, 2019. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by O'Laughlin, seconded by,
Second.
I heard Scharf, I saw his hand, but that's all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda is approval of the claims.
So moved.
Motion by Hill,
Second.
second by Scharf. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next, a public hearing on proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2018 City Hall steps and ramp project and the taking of bids therefor. We have somebody here to speak on this.
Yes, we do. Do you want to open the hearing?
Who do I need to call up?
Dan Levi from Levi Architecture.
Okay. The architecture firm.
Do you want to open the hearing first, or do you
Oh.
want to make the presentation first?
Oh, okay, I guess maybe that might help. Just a second, gentlemen. I need a motion to receive and file proof of the publication of a notice of public hearing.
So moved.
So, motion by O'Laughlin, second by Scharf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. And I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf,
Second.
second by Hayward. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We end public hearing. Now it's up to you guys.
Very good. Good evening, council members, Mayor, Al. Again, Dan Levi with Levi Architecture from Cedar Falls, Iowa. Mike Toll also.
You might need to speak a little more into the mic. I'm not sure if they're picking you up anywhere else, but hopefully so.
Okay, sorry, Dan Levi with Levi Architecture, Cedar Falls, Iowa. We visited you several weeks ago. We'd gone through some of the renderings, and we were in the interim, putting together some of the final details, the specifications, and working with Al on just a couple of material selections, some lights, and some other items in order to get the bid package prepared and ready to hit the streets to receive bids. We have already worked with the city to schedule a pre-construction hearing so we can meet with interested contractors, material suppliers, subcontractors, answer any questions they may have, maybe include some additional clarification in the bid process, and then are prepared to receive bids then, if it's approved, on the 26th, and have a letter of recommendation from receiving those bids in the afternoon for the council meeting that evening. It's not a large project, fairly limited scope, so our opinion is that 2 weeks is enough time for interested parties to review the project with us on site, review the plans and specifications, and then provide appropriate bids, which we will publicly open here at this facility in the afternoon, and then we'll come back that evening and present our recommendation on those bids, ensuring that all of the bid opening was done properly. Project has not changed of any substantial nature from when we had presented it to you previously. A little pipe work, a little bit of exposed conduit. We found through some pictures and some investigation, we have an excellent brick match. So any of the brickwork should match. We're extremely happy with the match given the age of the building. We're quite satisfied with that. Did some clarification work. And then we also will be including an alternate to work on a security system for the 2 doors at the Main Street and 2 doors over here on the side. So we're still a little process with that, but that's going to be included in the project. We have also included as part of the project specifications requiring the contractor to include a $10,000 contingency in their budget. So when we receive the bids, it will include a simple line item of $10,000. If we don't use that, we will have a change order written that will deduct that from the price of the project, and you won't pay, but we'll have it included in their bid bond, and it'll be required. We are talking about a renovation. Something always goes a little sideways when we're doing renovation work, so we wanted to ensure that the city is part of the bid package that you may approve tonight and then eventually receive bids for. That price will include a little bit of a buffer. It's not a large amount, but it's not a large project. But we wanted to include a little something to make sure if there were problems, we didn't have to come back to City Council to approve a change order and to modify a contract. We had just a little bit of wiggle room. Again, if it's not needed or if only a portion of it is needed, we would eventually do a change order to remove that from the contractor's contract, and you would only pay, obviously, for the work that was actually received by the city.
Now, are the 2 doors they're included in everything now, to make those 2 outside doors handicapped accessible?
Yes, as part of the project, we do have automatic operators on the 2 doors out front with remote paddle, 6-inch stainless steel paddles that'll be mounted to both inside and outside the building. So both of those doors will automatically open, and that is separate from the access control system. It's more of a proximity card or a key fob system, if you will. There's a wide variety of functionality with that, so we're still defining just one little piece of that, and we'll get that included as well.
But we do need to replace the 2 doorways.
Just the exterior. We're doing everything we can, working with the hardware consultant to see if we can't salvage. Our intent right now is to salvage the interior door. It's a beautiful door. We'd like to make sure the hardware functions properly, but the intent is to save that door and only replace the exterior door. Again, little cost-saving measure as well if we can reuse those doors. And they function. We're a little concerned about the hardware, so we're still working out a few bugs with that. But we're going to submit it. We're going to put it out on the street, assuming that we can get that work done. I believe we can.
And what was your estimated cost for this project?
It's a fantastic question. That did not change from the original one that we had submitted previously, and honestly, I did not bring that paperwork with me tonight. It is the, it was in we put that in a letter or an email to you. We had talked about that before the previous meeting. I apologize. That's an excellent question, an expected one, and I simply don't have that paperwork on me, and I'd rather
I
not
just
guess.
wondered if it had gone up or so many times
No.
things change.
Nope. Again, between the last time we met and today, all we've done is just clarify a few items.
Which I don't have with me.
I think it was $20,000, wasn't it?
For the door?
I believe the number was 146,000, but I don't have that off the top of my head. so-
I don't even
We'll
want
see if I can-
to guess. I
I
apologize.
thought it was in the 140 range.
Yeah,
I thought it was in the 130s, so we're all in the same ballpark.
Okay.
so I apologize. We should.
I know we had one project, every time they came back, it went up like 20, 30,000. Remember that one, Danny?
They all do that, I don't know which one you're talking.
That never goes that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions for us about the project, about any
Does-
clarification or reminder of what we talked about a few weeks ago, in case anyone was interested?
Did we figure out what we're doing with the bicycle rack?
That's to be determined by us.
W-
for the project. For the
At this
bicycle.
point, the bike rack is in fairly good shape, and so our intent was simply to relocate it as part of the project, not to
Do-
get rid of it or get a new one, but I
Do
think
we
it
know
could-
where we're relocating?
East side. We'll move it around to the east side.
Oh,
So we'll move it around the corner.
okay.
The stairs are just taking up so much room, and the ramp, they take up so much room coming out front. Between the bell and the flagpole, we just don't have any additional room without pushing it too far out onto the public way, so we brought it around the corner.
Okay,
But it's in fine shape and should be reused rather than a new one.
okay.
Remember, we discussed an elevator with not using the stairs. Was that structurally allowed? Based on what we have here, would that be allowed, would be able to do that down the road in another project?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We wouldn't do it out front. We talked about another location possibly on the west side.
Correct.
We had talked about that. Yeah, this project does not negate that opportunity at all.
Okay.
No.
All right, thank you.
What are we looking at for a time frame? Do we have
Our
90
intent,
days or, I don't,
right, a quick schedule. Our intent, if approved today, would be to receive bids in 2 weeks. Given, city entities, we have certain hoops we have to jump through rather than a private entity. So we would expect an executable contract within 30 days. We would hope it gives contractor plenty of time to mobilize while we've accepted a bid, but we're just simply working on some paperwork. So I think mobilization would be able to happen pretty quickly. Construction timeline, I think, is going to be somewhere around 90 days to 100 days. I think it doesn't seem like much, but there's a lot of work. There's some utilities that have to be relocated, and there's a fair amount of work there. So I think it's going to be a good 3.5 months. Would be
Is
my
that going to cause
anticipation.
any problems with the 4th of July? I mean, people. a lot
You'll
of
be under
people-
construction, would be my anticipation. I don't think they'll be wrapped up by the 4th. I think we could be seeing
It'll
the
be
very
just in
trail end
front-
of it.
Just in front of City Hall would be the only problem it would be, right?
When we have that, our pre-construction, or our pre-bid meeting with interested parties, we can emphasize to them that the 4th of July timeframe would be received very well. We could, if you deem so interested, we could actually include a end date or an anticipated calendar date of when the contractor thought they would be complete. So in case we had two proposals that were of equal value, and one was saying the end of July and one was saying the 1st of July, certainly may influence your decision on which contractor to provide the contract to.
I don't think it's going to make any difference because you're not going to have the 90 days from the 1st of April. You're only going to have 90 days till the 4th of July.
Right.
And you got,
How quickly can we execute a contract? And again, I mean, there's just certain limitations on what the city honestly can do, and for very good reason. I would be really surprised if we could make that happen, but you never know. Someone might be able to do it in 60.
What I was just thinking is the sidewalk and stuff, people walking up and down Main Street when things are going on, if they can just clean it up at that point.
Our anticipation is that we would allow the contractor to use a few of the parking stalls on the west side and everything out to the curb, because they'll need some room to do their work, and then also coming around the east side. And so what we could do is work with the contractor at that point, and as we approach that holiday, we can ask them to move their barriers and construction fence as far in as possible. By that point, I would think that that wall would be already constructed, bricked, and done, and they're just doing some other things in other areas. We could tell them, this is a schedule we would really like you to put together, and this is our expectation. This is the city's expectation, that that barrier could then be moved forth, so at least people could walk by on the south side of the road without having to go out into the street. Be a dangerous situation potentially on the 4th of July. So we certainly will make that, that phasing a very prominent part of the discussion on our pre-bid walkthrough.
Thank you.
So during the construction itself, that part of the sidewalk will be blocked off where you won't be able to utilize it while they're.
It'll be very narrow. It may be 3 to 4 feet. It depends on where exactly they can set their construction fence. But they'll need some of it. I mean, for 4th of July, 3 or 4 feet, I mean, you're walking in the street. And so what we'd want is for them to be able to pull that back for that when we get close to holiday. Until then, it'll be much narrower than what you have now.
Okay.
We'll tell the contractor they can't have all of it, but it's going to be pretty close.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion, comments? Nothing? Then I need a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf,
Second?
second by O'Laughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now I need a motion to approve proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, estimate of cost, and the advertisement of the taking of bids.
So moved.
Motion by Hayward, second by Scharf. Roll call, please.
No.
Or is it O'Laughlin? I'm sorry.
You're fine.
You guys sound too much alike, yes. Thank you.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Thank you, guys. Next on the agenda, motion to waive and suspend the statutory rule requiring the ordinance to be considered and voted on for passage of 2 prior council meetings. This is the ordinance designating an area of Independence, Iowa as the 2018 Independence Multi-Residential Urban Revitalization Area.
This is an ordinance, you approve the plan and the urban revitalization area. The ordinance creating it needs 3 readings, and this is asking you to waive the second reading and approve it on its 3rd reading so we can move the multifamily housing project forward. This is not approving any form of tax abatement or what have you. You're simply creating the urban revitalization area.
This is the property out there by Prairie Hills.
That's correct.
Yes. This is just waiving the second reading, is that what you're saying?
Right, we had our first reading at the last meeting. This would waive the second reading and adopt it on 3rd and final reading.
This is the third.
It would be if you approve the waiving of the statutory.
There's 2 stages here
Right.
tonight. First one is waiving the second, and then next we'll do the waiving, or
adopt.
approving it for the
We're getting
third.
pretty lazy. We can't say yes 3 times.
It has more to do with the timing of the project than being lazy.
And technically, you're not actually waiving the reading, you are waiving the requirement that you wait until the next meeting for a 3rd reading. So really what the motion should be is a motion to essentially consolidate both readings. In other words, you'd read it twice. Because you can't waive a reading, technically.
Okay.
I'm just being hyper-technical, I
Okay,
apologize. but-
sounds good.
So you want us to read it twice?
Well, essentially, yes.
I read it once, I'll read it again.
I'll make the motion.
Are we making this motion for the second? or to
This would
make-
be the motion to waive the rule is what we
Okay.
need first, and then
I'll second it.
we need
Motion by-
we need a 2/3 vote to waive the rule first.
Okay, motion by Hill, second by O'Laughlin. This is going to be a roll call.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried. Now I need the motion for the third reading, or whatever.
final passage.
Motion for an ordinance designating an area of Independence, Iowa as the 2018 Independence Multi-Residential Urban Revitalization Area be now put upon its final passage and adoption. Third reading.
So moved.
Motion by O'Laughlin, seconded by Vaughn. Roll call, please.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried.
And now technically, Your Honor, you should do that one more time.
Okay, can I just say one more time, or do I have to read that whole thing again?
You should read it again.
Okay, thank you.
You're not used to the city attorney.
Sorry to be difficult.
I mean,
You gotta have 3 readings of the
he's
ordinance.
alert.
We had one reading at the last council meeting.
Right, so now you got 2, so you need to do one more.
I'll make the motion for the third reading.
Okay, you're not gonna let me read
Go ahead
all
and
that?
read it, and then,
I'll
He's gonna
second
make
that.
me, okay, he's gonna make me read it. Motion for an ordinance designating an area of Independence, Iowa as the 2018 Independence Multi-Residential Urban Revitalization Area be now put upon its final passage and adoption. Motion by Hill, second by Hayward. Voice. Now we'll do another roll call.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Motion carried. Are we okay?
we now have a legally passed ordinance once published, yes.
Thank you.
Satisfied with that.
Thank you. You just wanted me to have to say that one word again.
I know.
I
It's
know.
glorious the first time, so.
Okay.
I like the new city attorney.
Yeah. You
Now
didn't
he's
remember
got his-
anything about him, but I'm gonna remember this guy.
Resolution replacing and repealing Resolution 2018-19 to provide for a notice of hearing on proposed plans, specifications, form a contract, estimate of costs for the 2000, did I just not do that?
We did.
Am I on the wrong one?
No,
This is
you're-
another one.
We did the public hearing on the plan specifications
now
for
we're-
the contract. The issue with the resolution was not the date of the public hearing, but it also included dates for accepting bids for the STEP project. Those dates were not in keeping with what they were required to be, so this simply changes the second half of that original resolution.
Okay,
And,
you guys are just trying to make this an interesting night for me. Start again. Motion to approve a resolution replacing and repealing Resolution 2018-19 to provide for a notice of hearing on proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2018 City Hall Steps and Ramp Project on March 12, 2018, and the taking of bids thereof.
This one's kind of my bad.
This is what?
Well, I was reading through it and the dates didn't match up. And so I called up and talked to Susie and,
Actually, this was an issue before you ever called.
Oh,
It was
okay.
an issue with the last motion when you guys changed the hearing date. We didn't change the bid dates to go with it. So we
okay.
didn't meet the 13-day.
Oh, I want to blame him.
No, it's not his fault. It's from the last council meeting.
I got broad shoulders. Right.
So are you making my motion? And then I need a.
Sure.
second. Okay, motion by Hayward,
I'll
seconded by O'Laughlin. Roll call, please.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Thank you, motion carried. Onward and upward. Next, I need a motion to approve a resolution replacing and repealing Resolution 2014-103 to eliminate the street special assessment policy.
This one, we had discussed updating our special assessment policy. It did go through the Government Performance Finance Committee to modify the policy for our special assessments. When I ran it through the city attorney's office, they said, you should eliminate this because the state already has a special assessment policy. You don't have to use it in its fullest extent. You can take anything, up to what they allow. but they are recommending, as opposed to modifying our policy and restricting the ability to use special assessments to follow the state code. And in essence, what you're doing is, with this resolution, is eliminating the current policy, which has some fairly stringent restrictions on it. For example, currently we're limited to 10 years for repayment. Under certain circumstances, the state does allow 15 years. You're limiting your interest on the account, or interest on the special assessments that are paid over time to 2% over the bond, whereas the state code allows you, I believe, to go up to 9%, on the special assessment interest rate. The council has not done that to this point. I'm not proposing that, but those are, a couple of the types of limitations that are in there. Also, currently it's restricted to only reconstruction. If we do a maintenance, a major restoration or maintenance project, it is not allowed under our current policy. This would allow it. So several things in there, and again, their recommendation is to eliminate the policy and then determine on a case-by-case basis what is in the best interests of the city at each time.
The
Based on
state one
state.
just becomes our default.
We follow the state code. That is always our default. I mean, that's our cap anyway.
And we set the parameters based on interest or length of payment.
Correct.
Right now, there's no assessment on this project, right? Under the current,
I'm not tracking with you, Denny.
well, right now, if we build a new road out here, we do this, there's no assessment to the property owner. Is that correct?
Well, under our policy, yes, there could be. If
What
you-
is there?
We have not gotten anywhere close to where you'd make that decision yet.
This isn't based on a particular project. This is just the policy that we've had that we're repealing so that we default back to the state regulation.
We're taking it out here now. We can, on our current one, we could only assess for a brand-new street, tear everything out, put new concrete in. We do away with this, we take out the section where if we would decide to, our current policy wouldn't let us do an assessment on, say, a crack and seat project or an overlay project.
What about this project we got right out in front here? Where they're gonna redo Main Street
Oh,
from
Main
bridge to
Street?
bridge.
And again, we're just in the early stages of design and planning on that, so you're nowhere close to being ready to discuss a special assessment. Could we do a special assessment there? Yes, we can, because that would be a complete reconstruction. So this policy would not have a bearing on that one way or the other, whether we keep our current policy or eliminate it and fall under the state code. This one would be eligible for a special assessment. That's a decision you'll be faced with in 8 or 10 months.
But it could affect
Motion on this?
6th Avenue Northwest that is, I think, scheduled for rehabbing this summer.
Correct. It could affect those crack and seat projects, mill and overlay projects that you are considering at your April Committee of the Whole meeting. The special assessment policy, and part of the strength of that is if a neighborhood says, we don't want this project, and a percentage of them, a majority of them come in with a petition saying, we do not want this project, you don't have to do the project. We can move to another street. We have plenty of opportunities for streets that need attention. But the citizens get very direct input into, the project priority list, if you will, and how it affects them.
And that's a result of the state ordinance?
Well, it would be that case under either project. The special assessment code says if a majority of the residents petition not to do that, then it would require, I believe it's a unanimous vote of the council to move ahead with the project and the special assessment. Or if they say, we don't want you fixing our street, we can move to another street. I mean, we can identify enough streets in town that need attention that, if they don't want us to fix the street, we can pick another project. But that is part of the process, under the special assessment code, we have that flexibility.
So we're just kind of keeping our options open by eliminating what we now have and going with what the state says, just giving us another option to help pay for
That's correct.
projects.
How does that work when it's a state highway?
Well, in this case, it falls back to the city because it's going to be a part of our project. The state is providing funding for their highway portion. The state will always allow us to spend our money on their road if we choose.
Really?
But
That's hard to believe, isn't it?
unbelievable, only in America. But in this case, the state is providing funding for this portion of it. They're just asking us to include it in our project, but they're going to help with the funding for these two blocks. And that's something that we've been talking about since 2015 with the state, as far as, here's something that we have coming down the road, how does it fit with Highway 150? And so we've been in contact with them and continue to work with them on these
I
projects.
thought when they done that intersection up here by the gas station, I thought they just paid for the whole thing.
When they,
A few years back, didn't they do that intersection and then the one down
well, I'm sure they
at the
did
bank corners?
before my time, so I'm not sure.
I think they just overlaid them.
Are we not getting off the topic of this item on our agenda?
Arguably, we are.
So, before you is a motion to approve a resolution replacing and repealing Resolution 2014-103 to eliminate the street special assessment policy.
So moved.
Motion by O'Laughlin, seconded by
Second,
Hill. Roll call, please.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill.
yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next is a motion to approve the resolution amending fiscal year 2018 budget and transfers.
So moved.
Motion by Hill, seconded by
Second.
Hayward. Roll call, please.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next on the agenda is a motion to approve the resolution setting the fiscal year 2019 budget, CIP, and transfers.
So moved.
Motion by Hill,
Second.
seconded by O'Laughlin. Roll call, please.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda, City Water Service, B. Hilbert, motion to approve the city to draft and enter into a contract for services with a property owner.
Chief Cook has.
Oh, hi Doug, how are you? You want to introduce yourself?
I'll just explain this. Brian lives up on the north side of 9th Street Northwest in the Stone House, if you know where that is, Roy Cassie's house there. He owns that property. He wants to swap some ground with his neighbor up there because he owns some ground and she's got ground right next to his. And build north of his house, which falls out into the county because the city limits goes right by his house there. And he would like to hook to city water if at all possible. Now, talking to Mark, it's got some low water pressure up there, so he may have low water pressure, but he would have just put in a bigger line so he'd have the volume there. But he's got quite a ways to go to get city water. I mean, it'd all be to his cost too, so. And by code, it does allow the city to grant people outside the city limits water if they so desire. So
What about sewer? Is that,
sewer, he would not, either whether he was annexed in or stays out in the county, he would not have to put in city sewer because he's far enough away from it. If you annexed him in and he wanted to hook to city sewer, he'd have to put in a lift station and go quite a ways to pick up the sewer also.
Is this in the northeast or the northwest?
Northwest, Mike.
Okay, the planning and zoning minutes say northeast. I couldn't figure out where in the world
my
that
mistake.
was.
Yeah, no, it's northwest, I'm sorry.
Okay, I think I know where you're at.
Where my
First.
sister lives or where my dad lived, across the street to the north there.
Okay, yep.
That's Stone House right
Yep.
there.
Now, do we charge, it looks like here we charge 150%.
Yeah, time and a half on water for anybody outside the city. And he's not positive he's gonna do this project, he's just trying to get all these ducks in a row so he knows what he would have to do. And one of the things that the planning and zoning looked at is if you made him stay out in the county and he had to put a well in, well, it's kind of in the floodplain, you know, so anything that would go down his well casing into the water aquifer is the same aquifer we're all getting water out of the city here. So that's the one thing they looked at, is they didn't want to see that happen because of where the property's located.
So since it's in the county, he can build in a floodplain?
What it will allow him to do is, because it's in the county, they have to have a 1 foot freeboard, which is 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain. If we annex it into the city, that would automatically become 3 foot, because we have more stringent rules here than FEMA's rules are, so.
Have we done this before?
Yes, there's, well, the event center out there's got city water. And if you know, Stephanie Harvey has a place down next to the river there that's on her ground too, that's down the hill from where he wants to build. That piece of property's in the county, but it's on city water.
Planning and zoning approved this?
We looked at it and just made a recommendation to the city that they were all right with it. It's not really it falls under the city council, but we just took it in front of planning and zoning, so we had somebody look at it, you know, to kind of give you guys a recommendation. They recommended, I mean, you know, it is up to you, though.
It's significant that you pay attention to the proposed motion. They must be under contract for these services. It is not approving that they connect. What you're doing is authorizing us to enter into a contract with the property owner. City Code under 92.03 states that no such customer will be served unless a customer shall have signed a service contract agreeing to be bound by the ordinances, rules, regulations applying to water service. So really what we're doing is entering into a contractual relationship to provide water to the property that's outside of city limits.
And we would definitely make him go clear back to the main to pick up his water. He wouldn't let him tie on to the property he's got now, so.
Would we have to pay for laying the water line and everything?
No, under this scenario, he is responsible for all of the connections and water lines, et cetera. The contract would also identify the fact that we do have concerns about the water pressure because of how the water pressure up there is not the highest in town, and he's running a fairly lengthy line. Like Doug said, he'd probably have to put in a larger line to get more volume, but that doesn't increase the pressure. And there are certain things that the state requires as far as water pressure goes. And that has to be part of his decision-making process as to whether or not he connects to this. I agree with the protecting the aquifer, having wells that are in our aquifer. That is risky business in the floodplain.
It appears to me the city's held harmlessness. I'd be willing to make the motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion by O'Laughlin, second by Hayward. Any other discussion? A roll call, please.
Vaughn,
Thank you, Doug.
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you, motion carried. Thanks, Doug.
I'll be here for the next one, too.
You're here for the next one. That's why you're not moving. Okay. Next on the agenda, subject is side yard setbacks for Wapsie Valley Creamery. The motion to set side yard setback at blank will need to be filled in when the motion is made, and the three people who had signed in are ones who want to talk on this, but I'll let you go first. Doug.
Okay, I'll just explain what's going on here. And that ground up there, everybody knows up there where Burkle's own that piece of ground in there. According to them, I thought the creamery had acquired it, but I don't know if they have or haven't. I can't answer that, but it's rated C2. It's a commercial 2 ground. And what our zoning ordinance does is it sets the front and the backyard setbacks at 25 foot on each one of those. And then on the side yard setbacks, what it says here is the independent city council reserves the authority to determine the setback requirements on a case-by-case basis. That's on C2 ground, but if you look on C1 ground, which that's how our ordinances work, they work backwards. On C1 ground, it says on the side yard setback, none required except adjoining any R district, in which case not less than 15 foot. And this piece of property is C2, but there's R3 that backs up all the one side of it and part of the south side of it, and there is some C ground on the south of it too, which would be the next building or Conklin's there. And then, of course, Casey's, that's all C ground too, but all these people live up there, live on R3 ground, so there's a lot of that backs up to this lot, so I would assume what this is saying is they don't want to see it any less than 15 foot. Now, you can set it at 15 foot. They can still request a 5-foot setback is what they want to see, but that has to go through a public hearing and to the Board of Adjustment. So I would assume the Board of Adjustment would like to know what the city thinks about it, because Board of Adjustment can do whatever they want, and there's not a whole lot anybody can do about it other than take them to court. So, but the Board of Adjustment will certainly work with the city. So, and the side yards will be the east and west property line, because the building is the way they're going to enter this property is from the north. So that would be the front yard, and the backyard would be the piece that backed up against the Conklin's property there.
So
Now, do I have this right? 25 feet on the front and the back and 15 on the sides
Well,
if we don't do anything?
if you don't do anything,
The way the code is written, the front and back are fairly well defined as 25-foot setback. The side yard setback, there is none required unless it abuts an R zone property.
So
which the east side.
East side would have to be
It's all
15.
No, well, you reserve the right to set that per our zoning code, but in a C1, it is set at 15 feet.
and then
C2,
another thing, once there's a public hearing and this goes to the Board of Adjustment, it's not less than 7 days and not more than 20 days, I believe. Anybody that owns property within 200 foot of this property will get a letter, notification of this meeting, so they can all come and, voice their opinions at that time also.
to the Board of Adjustment meeting.
At the Board of Adjustment meeting, correct.
Can 13th Street handle that truck traffic?
What's the load limit there right now?
Well, I was told today by somebody that lives up there that 12th Street is 6 inches thicker for the truck traffic, but 13th is not.
Yeah, that I couldn't
So you're gonna
answer.
bust that up right away with all the semis going in there to this warehouse. Plus, there's gotta be a water issue there, because they're going to build up and,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have brought that up too. They do have engineers working on that water. We've all told them how, anybody who's lived here very long knows it, it really fills up there and fills up across the street on the Bachman property too. So, and we know that's a problem. So they do have engineers working on that, so. And what this says, because they were asking me on the building height too, the folks back here, and what it states in our thing is, it could be up to 35 foot or three stories high, so. And we haven't seen plans to know how tall a building they want to put in there, but I would assume it'll be fairly tall.
Is this gonna be cold storage, Doug, or
Yes, cold storage.
refrigeration?
I don't think any refrigeration, I think.
Well, how do you have you gotta have refrigeration, it's cold storage.
Well, maybe they will. That I can't answer. I have
Mike,
not.
I guess where we're going with this is, are they gonna use ammonia?
It's dry product. Doesn't need ammonia.
Okay. And as far as facility, he said just there'd be like a bathroom in there, for them to use, whoever's working there type thing, but no water, much sewer, so.
Otherwise, it's strictly storage, no office space or anything to that degree that they're looking at.
I haven't seen plans. I can't answer that. I don't know that I'm sure there'll be an office in there, but I think just for that facility.
What would happen if the council should decide to table this at this point and till they can actually get some of these questions answered or look more into it? Is that going to cause a delay, or is that going to be a big,
I mean, that's up to you people. Whatever you want to do with it, but until you set them, we can't really take it to the Board of Adjustment, because once you set it, then if they want to do something different, then those side yards will have to go to the Board of Adjustment also.
Well, I think we got Ryan and Tyler both here from WAPSI. They could probably answer questions if you got some.
oh, I actually have 3 people too that signed in on that, whether we want to do them first or whether you want Wapsie Valley to answer some of your questions for you, or,
Maybe let Wapsie Valley speak
Okay.
first.
Yeah.
if there's somebody here from Wapsie, you? Okay.
We also have our architect, Dan Levi, here that we're working with on the project, so.
Okay, if you want to introduce yourself, name.
My name's Ryan Nielsen, I'm with Wapsie Valley Creamery, and Tyler Rasmussen is also he's the project lead on this.
Okay,
And we currently have an offer with Burco to purchase the property pending approval of the site and everything by the city, so we have not purchased it yet, but we do have a agreement and a contract in place.
okay.
So that's the current status of it. We wanted to make sure that we can actually put a warehouse that's going to fit our needs on that property before we buy it. And like Doug said, we are working with Fair Graham Engineering and Dan Levi on the stormwater management, because we know that's an issue in that area, and we have the same issue in our other main location with stormwater, so we know how important that is. And we are going to use basically all the powder that we dry at the plant. We're going to move to have about 5 days worth of storage at the main plant, and then we have to store powder for extended amount of time. So it's just going to be 50-pound bags and 2,000-pound bags of milk powders that we're going to store at the site. And we'll have a small office with a phone and things, and then a bathroom, and then room for 2 semi-trailers to back up, and then enclosed garage area where we can park our trucks that we're going to use to transport the powder back and forth. So we just don't have enough room at our existing site with the streets and the railroad and the stormwater and everything. So we're trying to keep it close by, so we keep our employees' time moving everything back and forth. And we thought it was a good fit. And it was already zoned commercial and it was open. And so I don't know if you have any other questions, and I'm sure there'll be more that the neighbors have, but we're just here, we want to work with everybody and make sure it works for the community, so.
Now, would you be moving the dry product to this warehouse using straight truck like you do with the old Walnut Grove warehouse?
That's what we have now. We could potentially use the semi. I guess we haven't thought that far out, I guess, on how many trips it's going to be with the straight truck versus a semi-trailer.
Are the semis going to back in at an angle like we do now?
We have a layout with Dan Levi where he's done where they turn off 150 and turn in, and we'll have a parking lot big enough so the truck can fully turn around inside our lot and then back up to the loading docks, so.
Oh, good, without requiring use
Yep.
of the street.
So the truck will pull into our lot, turn around and back up and do all of its adjustment off the street on the parking lot.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Do you know how big the lot is total?
It's 2.3,
2.4 acres.
But do you know the dimensions?
363 by 200 and
80-ish, I think.
280 feet.
And it looks like the long way would be east and west.
Yes.
How big of a building are you looking?
Roughly 60,000 square feet, roughly.
How big by how big?
300 by 200?
Yeah, but, well, there's a cutout for that for the parking lot and driveway, but basically what we're looking at right now is the north west corner would be the parking lot, 3/4 of that lot, the northwest corner would be parking and enough room for the trucks to turn around and back up, and the loading docks would be on the west side where they would back up to the building, and the south half would be all building.
Okay. So you're gonna go pretty much setback to setback on the south end?
And we gotta do the stormwater and see how much retention pond, or if we're gonna do an underground vault, or what we're gonna do underneath the parking lot to make sure we store the stormwater and don't flood out everybody.
Okay.
We're still very early stages, but
Yeah, and we don't have final building plans yet because a lot of it is, determined by what our setbacks are. So we can only go so far in the design process before, we gotta know what we have to work with and try to, maximize the utility of the real estate there is really what we're trying to do and add value to it.
kind of,
Would you be using formed concrete walls like you did with the cooler area?
right now we're looking at we'll do a cost study on that, but probably just a metal building. It's like a pre-engineered metal building with a metal roof and have painted walls, and it'd be at a concrete base on it so the trucks would back up at that height.
A single floor building?
Yes, single floor.
Okay,
How tall? You're gonna go the 30 feet?
Well, I think the trucks would be about 4 feet off the ground, and then we want to be able to stack 4 pallets tall, so it's probably close to 30 feet.
Possibly. I mean, a lot of it depends on what the roof line's gonna do and how we can handle the water and also the grade of the ground. We haven't got all those details yet.
I guess we just need to be able to stack 4 pallets in there. That's all the farther we've gotten on the design, so the roof.
And I'm just trying to get a picture of the size of this building in my head.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking those questions.
Pallet's about 6 foot tall, 5.5 to 6 foot, so you're gonna have 24 feet of product, and then you're gonna have to have some space above it, so you're probably gonna be at least 30 feet.
Okay.
Because then you have your forklift, you're gonna have to be able to get the boom.
Yep, mast on it. And is there anywhere we can find out what that street, how thick that concrete is on 13th Street?
We'll check with our resident expert, Mr. Donnelly.
Okay. Any other questions, or we can come back up after the other people?
yeah, in case they have anything they need to ask you. If you guys want to just sit up front here in those chairs so you're closer. Scott, is it Cruz?
We have alligators under that chair. If it goes bad, you guys are gone.
How do you pronounce it?
Is it Crozier? I can't-
Crozier?
I don't know what the last letters are.
Am I pronouncing it right? Scott somebody. Give us your name, would you please?
Scott Crosser,
Okay,
and
address?
1223 6th Avenue Northeast.
Thank you.
I guess I'm not sure if we're voting on the setback tonight or not, but I guess I'd just like to voice my opinion of keeping it at the 15 foot if that's what's required. Mainly because of stormwater runoff and a little bit of aesthetics, I guess, for our backyard and our neighbors. I mean, 5 foot's pretty short to have a building up against your backyard.
Okay,
So I guess those are the main concerns, is the water runoff is really the main concern. And right now, I don't know if they're gonna build the building up higher than what's there. That lot is actually about 2 foot lower than our yard right now, or all the yards along there. And we get plenty of water in our backyard, even with that 2 foot drop off to where the water goes down into that lot and sets. So if you raise it up it's gonna make it worse. You're taking out the lot because of a building, which will make it worse, so that's my concern. So I guess I'd like to have the 15 foot so the water has a place to run off. Not just from that lot, but from all the lots around, all the housing around it. I guess I do have one question. You said you're gonna put the building on the south side of the lot, so the.
An L-shaped,
An L-shaped building?
and then the parking lot over in the school. So it'd be building, and then it'd kind of come up here, the trucks would.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was, L-shaped building. So it basically, you're looking at building along the south and the east property line will be building. And that's exactly where I'm talking about,
Okay.
is our property's up against the east lot, or east property line of their lot. So
Great.
I guess my recommendation would be to keep it at 15 foot if possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul Bachman, you here? Let's give us your name and address, please, when you come forward.
My business is at 1308 Fifth Avenue Northeast.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I also own the rental houses or residential property across the street on 13th Street Northeast. We always have had a water issue in there. I don't know if you guys are aware, but 6th Avenue Northeast actually doesn't have any stormwater collection. It all runs down the road and then back down 13th Street Northeast. We've always had that problem. We've asked for a little bit of help on that with, to no avail. And then you're also bringing it all the way down the hill of 13th Street Northeast. Stormwater runoff is a big problem in that area. Also, we've got increased semi-traffic in that area if the warehouse gets put in there, if the road can handle it, or if it cannot. As far as the setbacks, that's neither here nor there with my property. It's more water runoff is what I've got concerns with. I can understand if I lived at their properties, I probably wouldn't want a building within 5 feet of my property, but that's their property. So I just want to see I want to see all the boxes checked, that they've done their homework and that the city has actually done their homework on it, making sure that we're not adding to the problem that already exists there. So those are kind of my concerns on the property. I'd like to see the proposal, like to see what are in the plans. It looks like it's really, really early in the program, so I guess we'll kind of see what gets proposed here. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, do you know, does 13th have, I should know with Laura having lived there, but does 13th have water, sewer, or stormwater collection on it?
It does. Actually, in your guys's, in what was posted online here, the satellite image, basically right in front of the gravel. If I could show you guys, or if you got it in front of you. But I'd say about a quarter of the way onto the property from 150, there's collection there on both the east and the west, or excuse me, north and south sides of the street. There is. It does fill with gravel regularly off of the existing Burco lot, and then also out of the Calvary Center. They have a gravel turnaround up there, and it just seems to run down the road. I'm just going by the trail of gravel is what leads me to believe that where it comes from. It could also come from the gravel road there on the corner too. I'm not sure what street that is, but it could also come out of there. But there is collection there.
That water flow problem's kind of from the north coming south, isn't it?
Actually, from the east down. It would be 6th Avenue Northeast, all runs back to 13th Street Northeast. It actually runs to the north and then runs down, and then all the way down 13th Street to the west. It all runs down that hill to be collected there by those two intakes. And I've got some pictures and some videos if you guys want to see it, but it'll get so high in there. Along our three houses there, we've built a dam, or had to build up a berm to keep the water actually off of our property because it gets so high and it cannot collect fast enough. So again, with the faster watershed of a building on this Burco property, that's obviously another issue for us, is it sheds water even faster. And when, recently, let's use 4 years. I don't want to be held to that date, but Burco did increase the height of that property, and we did see an increase in water flow or runoff on that property, or from that property onto 13th Street. And again, don't quote me on the 4 years, but sometime in the past, they have raised it up and created or added to the problem. So, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Leola Soliski? Am I saying that right?
Loyola, Loyola.
Loyola, okay. Apologize for messing up everybody's name here.
Loyola Soliski, 516 12th Street Northeast. I too, we just found out this evening around 5 o'clock about all this. And I just wanted to voice my opinion. We've lived up there for 38 years. It's always been a very nice, quiet neighborhood. I'm just afraid if we get this, it will not only affect our property values, but you have the trucks constantly and the noise, and there are children up on 6th Avenue there, and and I'm not sure about down on 13th Street, but I just wanted to voice my opinion, and
So does your property back up to where this lot
yes.
is?
We
So-
would be on the south side of the building. We're on 12th Street there.
So in regards to the 15-foot setback, does that affect you, or do you have a opinion on what that should be for the east side of the property?
Well, I definitely want to see it any closer than 15.
Okay.
So, and as they were saying, has always been a lot of water issues up in that area.
And on 6th Avenue, you got kids playing out there in the
Yes,
backyards,
we
don't
do.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You guys wouldn't have any trucks on 6th Avenue, would you? They're just going to be down here on the
But the
very
backyard's
corner of
what I'm talking
13th. Oh, back. But the trucks would all be on that northwest corner, if I'm right. I'm just saying, I don't think there'd be trucks in the backyard area.
So the trucks would not go on down 13th to 6th or anything like that? They'll come from 150, pull into the property?
No, the trucks will come right off 150
Okay.
and go up 13th and then turn right into our lot, basically as soon as they get onto 13th. So as far as, the east property line, they'll never even see the trucks. It'll just be building on that side.
Okay.
Probably actually block the truck sound from the highway more than, roughly 5 semis a day is all that are gonna be going in there, so it's not like a huge distribution center where we're gonna have 50 trucks a day going in and out.
It'll be pretty much daytime hours rather than any night
8 to 4.
type of things? Okay. Okay.
What's your request for setback?
We had requested 5 feet because the Conklin building is at 3 or 4 feet back from the property line. And we thought that was setting precedent for that lot, and that neighborhood was already kind of set with how far back the Conklin building is from the property line.
So on the south property line, you'd request a 5-foot
Between,
setback?
yeah, between Casey's and the lot we're discussing is that existing building that's 4 or 5 feet off the property line.
Is that allowed now to be 5 foot? I mean, that's in the.
Would you be putting in a concrete parking lot?
'Cause that's not.
Yes, concrete parking lot.
So there wouldn't be gravel
Filling.
rolling into 13th?
Not from our lot,
Yeah.
as far as.
No, I'm just saying, you'd,
Now, the question tonight, just so we're clear, is not the rear yard or front yard setback, and the rear yard would be to the south. Currently, our code says 25 feet. That is a Board of Adjustment determination. And obviously, that would have to go to them. But, because of the variance in the zoning code. So the only thing really in question is the side yard, and I understand why the question, I just don't want us to get lost on
Right.
trying to determine front and rear yard setbacks, because that will go to Board of Adjustment.
So the east side will be the,
The east side is the question really, that's the
That
question
you're
in front of
dealing
you. And the west side, I'm not sure it really has any bearing on anything. It's a highway right-of-way. So I don't see a reason to get too engaged in that. But the east side, the side yard setback is up to you at this point. And again,
Isn't the rear a little important too? What, did we say 5 foot on the rear?
Okay, if we needed to, you need to come up forward if we're gonna, because we need to have you on the microphone if you have something you want to say.
You said the rear
Apologize.
is not important?
What we're dealing with
Charles
tonight,
Conklin, 309 3rd Avenue Southeast.
yeah, what we're dealing with tonight is strictly the east side because it butts up against a residential, and the policy is right now 15 feet unless the city council gives them a variance of less. Right now, it has to be 15 feet if it joins a residential.
So we're not talking about the
No,
south side at
no.
all?
We're only discussing the east side that butts up against the residential zoning.
the south side, while there is a request, and they've been forthright in saying that their request is for a 5-foot setback on the south side.
Right.
Our current zoning code calls for a 25-foot setback. That variance is issued is addressed by the Board of Adjustments, not by the city council. So instead of us spending a lot of time talking about front and rear yard, we don't need to muddy that water tonight, because that has to go to the Board of Adjustments for a public hearing and determination. This really has to be a discussion on the side yard setback, because that's where the zoning code puts it in the council's hands to make that determination.
And Charlie will get notified when the Board of Adjustment meeting is, because he's the
Because he's within
the
200.
property owner within 200 feet.
Correct.
So that's where you would go. Because we get water now, because Mr. Burko filled in that lot and was dry for years. When we built the building in 58, it was dry. And when we sold the lot to Casey's, it was dry until Mr. Burko filled in that lot, and now our building gets wet. So
And-
there is a concern to us
Right.
about how you're gonna fill in.
I
What
don't,
will it do to my floor level?
and I don't want to diminish the importance of the front and rear yard setbacks. That just isn't a conversation for tonight.
Oh, okay.
So, not to take away from it.
Okay, I just want to make sure something's not gonna slip under the.
Yeah, you should get
Can I
notified.
make one more comment?
Yes, you
I'd
certainly
like
can.
to address something, that Ryan said about the 5-foot offset for the Conklin building. I know it's the rear, but I think it'll might come into your side vote too, is that really shouldn't be used as a precedence, because that's not backing up against a residential area, the Conklin building. It's backed up against a commercial
Right.
zoning, so I just wanted to point that out. So that's all I had.
So what we're discussing, because you live in that residential area
Right.
that's next to the
But I
commercial
didn't know if
area.
that would
Right.
impact your decision.
And right now, it specifies it has to be 15 foot unless this council makes it less, gives a
Right.
variance for less,
Okay, thank you.
right? Was there anybody else that wanted to speak to this? You guys have anything else you'd like to offer? Comment?
Just like I said, we're gonna be a good neighbor and take care of the water issue. I think that's the biggest issue, it's not the setback. I'm hearing some setback and some water.
We might have you come up. We have to have consideration of the people out there in TV land.
Yep,
Sorry.
okay. So I guess I just want to say that we want to be good neighbors and not flood everybody out. So we are working with people, and we're going to make sure that we take care of that. And I think there are some issues or concerns with the setback, but it seems like it's more the water issue is more of the concern, and I guess we will make sure that we take care of that. And I think those are kind of two separate issues that are getting pooled into one concern, I guess. And just because the setback is 5 or 25 or 30 feet, that's still going to have, you're still going to have water issues that we have to resolve, and we're going to take care of those water issues, so.
I
You're
think
going
that-
to have a lot of water coming off the roof of that building. It's
Yep.
going to have to go someplace.
can you build this building with a 15-foot setback on the east side?
We lose about 12,000 square feet of inside storage space that we're not going to be able to utilize then. If we lose our 20-foot setback, it's about 12,000 square feet for us, so,
No, 15 feet.
or, 15 feet to 25 feet, so.
Well, just so we're on the same page, currently it's a 15-foot insinuated by the code on the side yard.
Yeah.
Again, not addressing the front or rear foot with the 25-foot setback, so.
Just on the east.
Just on the east side,
Right.
the question really is from 5 feet to 15 feet. So it'd be about a 10-foot difference.
Yeah, 10 foot times 260 feet, so I guess that's 2,600 square feet of storage space that we would not be able to utilize on the lot.
Which is a significant amount of product. I mean, it is, compared to the 60,000, doesn't sound like a big number, but it does make a big difference to us. And, you know, as far as water, it's as big of a deal to us as it is to the neighbors, because our product and water do not mix. If water gets into our building, it's ruined.
Right.
So,
I think the people that are in the residential area that's been up here are more the having it that close to their property line, to have it down to 5 feet. They prefer to keep the 15 feet is what they're recommending or asking for, so I'm not sure what that is in square footage for your building, but, so it'd be the east side to stay at 15 is what they're requesting. So,
And all those neighbors will get invited to that meeting, but I had about 4 phone calls on my phone this afternoon when I got home. And they all addressed the height of the building too. Their houses are split foyers, and then all of a sudden they're gonna have this 3-story building in front of them and no view in their backyard whatsoever except for a building. That and the water issues and everything else you've heard, so that is an issue too with the neighbors that I've got calls about up there.
I'd like to see us think about this for 2 weeks and figure out what kind of impact it's going to have on our street up there. Number 2, I'd like to have a little better handle on what they're going to do with the groundwater. I mean, just to say we're going to take care of it, that's a pretty broad statement, you know. I'd like to be a little more, I'd like to have them figure out exactly what they're going to do with the groundwater. It's been a problem up there for years, and you start putting concrete up there, it's going to do nothing but impact that problem, you know. So they're going to have a pretty good system to,
And then what'd you say, they're 2 feet lower right now?
yeah.
So are you gonna raise that even up your land higher?
we can't go much farther in the design process until we know what we have to work with, so we're kind of stuck.
Well, let's
That's
go out to
possible.
25 feet and see what you come up with for groundwater, and let's talk about that road, which doesn't have anything to do with the dimensions of your building. Let's find out what it's made for, you know.
if you would like, you can make a motion to table this for 2 weeks and put it on the
Well, there's
next
an
council
idea. I
agenda.
make a motion to table this for 2 weeks.
Oh,
I second it.
council meeting. That went fast.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Dan, can you have something water-wise worked up by the next council meeting? Obviously, that's a big player here.
It's again, Dan Levi Architecture. Not to be argumentative, no. In 2 weeks, what we'd have to do is look at 2 different analysis based on the 2 different opportunities for setbacks that are being discussed, or anywhere in between. But it's a lengthy analysis. As we all understand, state of Iowa, you cannot adversely impact your neighbor with any construction. So regardless of the floor height, regardless of the building height, regardless of how large the building is, any water that is on the roof, on the pavement area, or is received by an adjacent property must be dealt with by this property. So if there is a problem, understand there, what are you going to do about it? That's a perfectly valid question. The reality is, if it is proven that there's water coming off of this property after it's developed, then Wapsie Valley Creamery is in violation of state law and will be required to remedy that situation. To that end, we have to submit full stormwater calculations done by a licensed engineer in the state of Iowa and give a plan as to how all of that water is going to be captured, how then we may have water quality or stormwater detention before it is slowly released into the stormwater area. So I don't want to say it doesn't matter, and I don't mean to say that the questions you're asking are not perfectly logical and valid questions, but we do have to have a plan for every drop of water that finds its way onto the property. If the property is developed in this manner, or in the manner that they're talking about, regardless of the nuances here of the setbacks, it's going to improve the stormwater management system for the immediate neighbors, because no longer will you have any of this water or existing gravel running out of the lot. It's not going to be allowed by state law. So any one of these citizens that live adjacent could be able to come to the city council and said, they're in violation of state law, you should cite them, and the city then could cite them, and they would have to remedy those situations, because then either something was not constructed per the design, or the design was flawed. Either way, the owner would have to make restitution to the adjacent property owners and remedy the situation. So to be able to put together those kind of calculations in 2 weeks is not, there's a lot of work that goes into figuring out where all this water goes. So I'd like to say yes. I just don't think that's a realistic possibility. The building, as it's currently been discussed along an L-shaped along the south side and along the east side, is actually going to become a barrier for noise and light pollution from the highway into the residential neighborhood, with semi-truck traffic getting off of the highway approximately 200 to 250 feet and no further. The way we designed it was to minimize the truck traffic on the side road to an absolute minimum. So all of our doors would be facing towards the highway, not towards the residential areas, trying to be as respectful as possible.
How much time would you need to figure that out?
I'm sure by not the next meeting, but the subsequent one, I would think would surely be enough.
But do you need to know exactly how far you can build on that
Right.
east side prior to even getting into some of this?
The setbacks are going to be the precursor for starting the calculation work. We need to know how much water, because all the water that lands on the roof and on the new pavement is easy to take care of. We know exactly it's got to go into on-site detention and then slowly released into the city's system. It would be the periphery. How are we going to capture that? Is it a swale? Is it a pipe? I can capture all the water necessary if I had a 2-foot setback. No one's suggesting that. I don't mean to start a little storm there, but I need virtually nothing in order to capture it. In fact, the less setback I have, the easier it is to deal with that water management system. That's not an argument to say that you should reduce the setback. I'm not trying, again, to imply that. But all of that can be taken care of, whether it's simply with a swale, with grading, or with mechanical means, meaning intakes and pipes.
To that point, the Buchanan County Health Center had that issue to deal with when they did their expansion. I mean, that's exactly what they had to go through, is how do they deal with all that excess stormwater because of impervious surface and, more rooftop, more pavement, et cetera. So, Dan, thank you for bringing that up. I think that is a very good point. If I bring you back to the topic, if Wapsie Valley came in to see Doug for a building permit and was following all of the setbacks, there is no conversation here at the council level, with the exception of what do you want the setback to be on the east side of the property? Because under zoning code, you have the right to determine that on a case-by-case basis. That is the only question. It's not whether or not Wapsie Valley can build their building on this lot up to 35 feet tall, up to whatever the setback lines are on 3 sides. So just to simplify it, and I don't want to go, I understand your purpose of the tabling motion, but please remember, the only discussion is the east side yard setback. It's not whether or not we like the building, whether or not we want a short building, tall building. Stormwater runoff is already addressed. Very, very valid concern. But the state also agreed with you that it's a valid concern, and they've put into place their rules and regulations to make sure it's addressed. So whatever you want to do is fine, but the only question is the side yard setback.
I have a question for Mr. Crosser. If they can account for the water, is that your main concern with the setback, is giving enough room for water runoff?
please come forward. Please come forward again. We need to keep you at a mic, I'm sorry.
I think that's one of the two concerns. The second one is the aesthetics of it being, 5 foot off your property line. And I don't think I'm the only one that feels that, but the other ones couldn't make it tonight. That a 15-foot gives you at least a little bit of buffer. I know, it's still gonna be there, but 5 foot versus 15 is quite a visual difference.
Okay.
But the water thing is also, and it's not just the water off their building, it's that everything runs to that lot for all the way, everything's downhill to that lot, and that's my concern. So,
Thank you.
What about 10, Scott, what do you think about 10 feet versus the 15?
I'd just soon keep it at 15 myself.
Okay.
I can't speak for the other neighbors, but
Sure.
I know that was kind of their thoughts too, but I don't want to put anything on the record from them.
Sure.
I'd just soon keep it at the 15, just because, well, we're 10 foot apart right here between me and her. And if you go another 15, or another 5, that's behind that wall, and it's just, the difference in that is visually, there's quite a difference in that. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I want to remind the council that we have a motion and a second
Yes,
to
we do.
table.
One last question, Al. Can they do 5 feet on the west, being that's 150?
Oh, they can go to a 0 setback on the west, because the zoning code is silent to setback on side yard unless it abuts a residential.
Okay.
So, again, on the west, they can go right up to the property line. Doug, I don't know if you have a different interpretation of the code, but that's what it says is, I mean, it's silent to a side yard setback.
C1 ground, this is actually C2 ground.
Right.
C1 is our downtown district, and that's why they let everything go to property lines, store fronts and stuff down. C2, on C2, it just says that you can set it. Now, everything like M2, M1, your manufacturing ground is 10-foot setbacks. 15 is quite a large setback compared to most anything else, residential. Some of it's 7, some of it's 8 foot, so. And just to remind you, you can set it at whatever you want. They can still take it to the Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment can take it to 0 or whatever they do. I wouldn't assume they would, but they could. And like I say, once the Board of Adjustment sets it, it's set.
It doesn't come back here.
It doesn't come back here. Yeah, you don't get another shot at it, so.
So
Okay.
the side yard setback on a corner lot for C2 has just got a line through it, which means, I mean, as I look at the zoning code,
Let me look here. Yeah, they're not really. And I'm guessing why they do that, I'm not sure.
I mean, we agree this is a corner lot, correct?
Right.
Okay.
No, it's got a minimum side corner lot on them,
This is a C2.
same as permitted uses. Well, C2, yeah, so why it's that way, I don't know, because we still have, I guess because it wouldn't be 25 and 25, because you got a side and a front, so that's why the line's through it.
Okay. We do have a motion and a second on the floor in regards to tabling this until next meeting.
Could I say something, though? He said that he couldn't do that for 1 week. He couldn't come up with those answers. He needed 4 weeks. So could we change that from 2 weeks to 4 weeks?
Your motion is strictly to
Table
it for 2 weeks. The second was for the same. So
Right.
you would
But
have,
we didn't have that information that it was going to take 4 weeks at that time.
We can take a vote on this, you can vote it down, and then you can go to another motion if you'd like.
Oh, I hate voting things.
Well,
Or do you
we
want
can
to-
amend it.
Or
I can
you
amend it
can
to
amend your motion
4 weeks.
to
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
If I can suggest that you amend your motion to address it on April 9th, date specific.
Okay.
Does this have any effect on your purchasing? Are you on any deadline or anything for your final purchase?
Yes, we are.
So does 4 weeks throw a big,
March 29th is,
Yeah, but even with that, as Dan said, without knowing the setbacks, we still can't do the water calculations. We're
so you
still
can't
in the
even
same-
start the calculations
Can
until you
if
know
he
it's-
amends that and proposes that at 15, proposes that at 15, I mean, that'll help you?
Also, just keep the setbacks as they are in the code, I believe.
At 15.
At 15.
And, well, at least that'll give you somewhere to go off. You see what I'm asking you?
Right.
And then you can go to the Board of Adjustment,
Adjustment.
see if they'll do something different for you.
Right.
Right. I guess maybe Doug can clarify this. I think we're here is a recommendation from the city council to take to the Board of Adjustments.
What, well, don't know what you did, but what you guys need to do is set that so that they know if they're gonna ask for a variance, they've gotta know what the setback is to ask, you know.
Right, right.
Board of Adjustments cannot address a variance on something that isn't established. They can do the front and rear yard, I agree. But the side yard, there's no legal standing to take it to the Board of Adjustments without having something to modify.
Right. So you, so
So
the.
if we
coun-
set it at 15 tonight, then there's a definitive line that they, Board of Adjustment can either modify or choose not to modify?
That would be my understanding.
And you also would be able to get started on your engineering on water and stuff based on whatever, too? Okay. So, do you want to amend your motion? Do you want to cancel your motion? What?
Well, there's two options, from a parliamentary standpoint. If the council, if he wants to proceed with his motion of a 4-week postponement to a date certain to April, what is it, April 9th, there would be a motion to postpone to April 9th. There is a second to that. You would either need to proceed with that, or he would have to withdraw it if the council's inclined. I mean, either way, it could go either way. Right now, there's a motion on the floor, and unless he withdraws it, we need to vote on it.
So we could go with the 15-foot, right?
But you need to cancel your motion to table it first.
I understood that.
You have,
Okay.
you have the
two
right,
options.
you have the right as a council to set that, put that setback according to the zoning code where you think it is best suited on a case-by-case basis. There is standing, in my opinion, looking at the C1 zone where it abuts a residential zone for 15 feet. So I think you've got a standing for why you'd pick 15 feet, so it's not an arbitrary number.
Okay. I make a motion to withdraw that whole thing.
Well, yeah, all you have to do is ask to withdraw your motion.
Okay.
You don't have to make a motion of that. You need to ask to withdraw the second. We also need the second withdrawn,
So the whole thing's out?
Well,
Just to table it.
as far as tabling. Then somebody can make a motion to
I was
set the
getting ready to
side
do
yard
that.
setback at
So was I, but go ahead.
whatever feet.
And I'd like to, are you okay with canceling
I'd like to see the 4 weeks at the 15 feet.
Would you?
Well, no, you're not setting the 15 feet at tonight.
We could do that
You're
tonight.
tabling it, period, for 4 weeks in your
So you're
motion.
just tabling it for 15 feet, but we could do it tonight for the 15 feet
Right.
and just be done with it. So that's my motion.
So you're requesting to,
It's the original motion with just 15.
Cancel that,
Okay.
cancel both motions.
okay,
And-
so then you're wanting to make the motion to
And make
set
the
a side
motion,
yard.
and make the motion to
setback.
pass this thing so we could go eat supper for 15 feet.
He's withdrawn his motion, so now he can make his
Make the
next
motion,
motion, which is 15 feet.
set
or
back
Keep
at
it at
15
15.
feet.
Actually, you wouldn't need to make a motion because it's already stated at 15 feet, right?
Well, it still needs to have a motion. to vote on.
Which is not less than, authority to determine setback requirement on a case-by-case basis, so they have to determine it.
Okay, you would have to act so that the Board of Adjustment has something to act on, and I
Right.
agree with Al on that, so,
I have a motion on the floor to set the side yard setback at 15 feet.
there we go.
Are you seconding that?
Second.
Okay. so we have a
Question.
Motion a second. Question, yes.
Can we add to that what the setback would be? That's on the east side, right? That's what your motion is.
Yes, because it butts
Can we
to
also
residential.
set the west side, which is the same thing, it's still a side yard setback, and
think-
set that at 0 feet?
I don't think we have any authority in setting that one since it's C1.
It- I would tell you it's already set at 0. I mean, there is no setback required on the west side, the way the C2 code is currently written.
And the reason it is for the other is because C1 is going against residential. That's why you have the right as a council to set that amount. It's set at 15, but you have a right to adjust that to some other distance.
Okay.
So that's why that motion is
As,
on the
as
wall.
long as they can go to 0 and pick up 5 of those feet back, I'm fine with that.
And you need to understand, too, if you do pass this at 15 feet, it still goes to Board of Adjustment.
Absolutely.
They have the right to request that from the Board of Adjustment. Board of Adjustment has a guideline, and they can make that change also.
Okay.
But at that point, all the residential people should get notice of when that public hearing is, can attend that, get their 2 cents put in. But whatever the Board of Adjustment decides, that is final. It does not come back to this council for any discussion. So everybody on the same page?
Got it.
So we have a motion and a second to set side yard setback at 15 feet. Okay?
Good.
Roll call.
Hayward,
Another question. Do we need to specify that that's the east side yard?
I have it down. It's the east side yard of the property located at 13th Street.
Okay, to me, if I'm reading that, I would, and it didn't say east, I would assume both were. Okay, so as long as it says
Yep.
east side, yes, I vote for that.
Okay.
Hill,
After all the discussion, I'm going to abstain because I, my long history with Wapsie Valley.
Bob.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz is absent. Okay, so that motion.
And Mike
does-
Hayward is the counsel for that area. It's like
This is in your ward, Mike.
No,
I got
I'm
the calls
not.
today. Oh, who is?
I don't think so. I think it's in hers. I think mine goes up 8th Avenue.
You think it's in Fifth
Well,
Ward?
that's not on the agenda.
I don't mind the calls, but if it's somebody else that should get them, they should get them too.
It's,
We'll let you guys
not on the
discuss which
agenda to
ward.
discuss
So you
this.
guys understand where we're at and
Cut off
what the
somewhere
next
there,
step
so that's
is, and
great.
hopefully we didn't.
Okay. Not a problem.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all that participated and gave us your opinion. We really appreciate that. So
Get those signatures up there. I only voted 9.
next you'll be getting letters from Board of Adjustment, I'm sure. Okay, next on the agenda, moving forward. Motion to approve an agreement with WHKS for professional services regarding First Street East Bridge over Malone Creek Bridge replacement.
This agreement has been run through the city attorney's office, and there were some minor but prudent changes, I think, that they recommended and were accepted by WHKS.
So that they will accept problems, they will accept and pay for problems with a second subcontractor. In their agreement, in their initial proposal before it's the RFP, they wouldn't. And they also would not assume liability for 2 other.
They have agreed to the language that the city attorney put forward, so.
That removes their,
So we should be okay with that.
I'd like to hear the language.
Is that this attachment?
Yes.
It should be on your iPad as an
Yeah.
attachment for professional service agreement.
make sure you're signed into your account.
It's short. You want it read?
The City of Independence has received funding from Iowa DOT Bridge Fund for the replacement of First Street East Malone Creek Bridge. The existing bridge is a 123 by 40 continuous steel beam bridge built in 1952. The 2005 ADT was 6,900 vehicles per day. There are 2 lanes of traffic on the bridge with a speed limit of 30 miles per hour, as well as 4-foot wide sidewalk on each side. The bridge has a sufficiency rating of 51.6 of 100 due to structural deficiency, and is also functionally obsolete due to roadway width. Preliminary design, scope of services, the preliminary design is perform lead paint and asbestos sampling and testing of existing bridge, perform field survey of the project site to assist in the development of plans to include the following: perform topographic survey of railway, ground, bridge, and creek in the vicinity of the bridge, process field survey data, create base mapping of field survey, survey one typical valley section across Malone Creek, perform stream profile survey, top of water shots every 100 feet to 500 feet upstream and downstream of bridge.
Are you planning on reading all pages of that exhibit A?
I think
That's like
what-
4 pages long.
I think what he's talking about here, for the city attorney, is if you go to attachment A, page 1, number 5, guarantees and warranties. I think that's what, not to speak for you, but I think that's your
Exactly.
concern here.
Yep.
I think what they're saying is if it's not proven to be their fault, they're not going to be held liable for the work of someone else, which is pretty standard.
We didn't see it in any of the other RFPs. None.
I'm sorry.
We didn't see it in any of the prior RFPs either. They're the only company that provided that.
I'm not sure I understand the concern. The indemnification clause is certainly good in paragraph 6, which, I think the guarantees, it's the guarantees and warranties section your concern?
Mm-hmm.
And specifically how?
In
I'm
their-
not saying that
in their-
there's
in their-
anything.
In their presentation, they did not accept any liability based on subcontract work done for the site. For example, if the hydrological survey comes through and says they need to apply some kind of mechanical or physical device down there to improve the watershed.
Yeah. No, I mean, what they're saying here is if they cannot
That's right here.
if they cannot verify the existence of any condition due to someone else having done that work,
There's 6 right
they don't have access or control of what that work can, they're saying that they would not warrant that, is what they're saying. But they are indemnifying us against loss for any of their negligent acts, errors, or omissions in the performance of professional services under the agreement. I don't know what to say, except that's a fairly standard clause. They typically will not take responsibility for something over which they have no direct control or responsibility.
Well, if they hire the subcontractor to meet the criterion established in their engineering plan, then they would certainly be liable in my estimation versus the city.
I would say they would be liable for anybody they hire to perform their scope of services, certainly. This would reflect a circumstance where someone else may be involved in the project somehow. So, not having looked at this until right now, I do apologize, but Steve reviewed this, but is this, are we planning on, in this project, having other folks work on the project?
I don't know, I would assume it would be just one contractor, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that can change in a project too.
And this is a legitimate concern you bring up. If someone else comes on the project site and that we hire independently of them to review the subsoil, for example. Sometimes, you have somebody come in, Terracon or somebody, and bore sample an area or something like that. If they're not provided that information and they go ahead and they proceed and they do work, we never provide it to them and Terracon never gives it to them. I think what they're trying to say is We're not liable for that, because you didn't give us that information, those people didn't
Right,
give us
right.
anything.
And that's understandable.
If we want to verify with them, though, that what they mean by this is if they hire a sub, they're responsible for that sub, I think maybe we could do that.
Because I'd never seen any of that in the RFPs and.
Yeah, my guess is they would say that's not what we mean by this, and that's not how I interpret it, but this is a legitimate point you raised, and if you want to go back to them and clarify that, we can.
Mike, this is language that is not likely to be in an RFP. This is the
indemnification process.
well, this is the contract language that they're, the lawyer stuff. This is the contract for services. The RFP process had nothing asking them for sample contract language, for example.
Well, but none of the other RFPs in either this round or the previous rounds, we'd examined RFPs. WHKS was the only one that had that type of language in there.
I'd argue that.
Release from liability.
I'd argue that every one of those companies would have the exact same language in their contract for services like this is. This is very standard language for services.
And the more I look at it, I think I agree with Al, because if they can reasonably ascertain a fact that's important to their work, no court in the world is going to tell them they don't have to be responsible for that.
Okay.
They're going to say, you're a professional engineer, you didn't ascertain that fact before you built this here, or whatever the deal is. Yeah, I mean, I think clearly what they're trying to say here is if, like I said, I think that's what they're getting at. And I don't think we need to go back and clarify that with them, because I think that's the way it would be interpreted. It's a circumstance where we're hiding the ball from them. We went out, had an engineering, like a
Right.
survey
I
done.
get all, I mean, that's.
We don't give it to
that's
them.
Pretty rudimentary, but what I'm looking at is, the city could end up eating a substantial portion of bridge. Is not an inexpensive process.
No, you're right.
And there are many components to it.
But it's the cannot ascertain language that gives me a lot of comfort.
Okay.
Because if they can ascertain a fact, which as a certified, as an engineer, they can ascertain a lot of things, and they're professionally responsible for doing that. It's what they can't ascertain that they're saying, we can't guarantee that. There's no way for us to know, then we can't be responsible for that. They're trying to keep us from holding them liable for something they absolutely could not control under any circumstances. And the indemnity clause is very good. Number 6. I mean, they're clearly taking responsibility for their work with that, so.
I would guess any subcontractor they hire will have these people will have them indemnifying their work too.
You would hope.
Well, again, I would be surprised if any of our proposing companies did not have the same type of language, and they'll pass that on to subcontractors. They'll have their own agreement or scope of services, if you will. I sure don't want to give them credit where it's not due, but I mean, not having worked on that side with subcontractors, but again, I don't know that there's anything in here I would say is not very.
Do I have a motion? Did I hear anything?
I'd make the motion.
Okay. Motion by Hill, seconded by
Second.
Hayward. Roll call.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
No.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Thank you, motion carried. Next on the agenda is DOT agreement on 17th Street. Motion to approve an agreement for joint cooperative action with the Iowa Department of Transportation for the construction of geometric improvements at the intersection of Iowa 150 and 17th Street.
We're asking council's permission to enter into this funding agreement where DOT will fund up to 55% of the right-of-way improvements on 17th Street Southeast. This is not on Highway 150, it's only on 17th Street.
Will this assist us with the trail? It's going to go out that way too,
No,
as far as nothing.
This is just the turning lanes for 17th Street.
I would make that motion.
Motion by Hayward, second by O'Laughlin. Roll call, please.
Hill,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next is engineering service agreement, Highway 150. Okay, motion to approve an agreement with Crawford Engineering and Surveying Incorporated for professional services regarding geometric roadway improvements at 17th Street Southeast and Highway 150.
So moved.
Motion by Hill,
Second?
second by O'Laughlin. Roll call, please.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next is the Visu Sewer 2018 televising proposal. Motion to approve the 2018 televising proposal provided by Visu Sewer. Mark
This is-
is here if you need any.
This is for the First Street East project, the sewer line there. There are 2 blocks in there that are already slip lined, but the rest of it, both on the east and west sides, have to be televised before we do the project. We'd like to do that sooner than later to get that in the hands of the engineer as soon as possible.
So move.
Motion by Hayward, seconded by
Second.
Hill. Roll call, please.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Sharp.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried.
Just for the council's sake, Mark is looking at the 2018 street maintenance, the crack and seat projects, to make sure that we have relatively current televising or information on those sewer lines before we do that project as well. That would be under a separate contract from this again, but some of that likely has already been looked at.
Okay, next is a motion to approve the slip lining proposal provided by Visual Sewer.
This is an annual event for us where we try to do about $50,000 worth of slip lining each year. There are, I think, 3 different areas that are accounted for. It's part of our standard maintenance each year. It helps with I&I. It also helps shore up some of the questionable sewer lines, so we don't have problems like we did out behind Best Cobb.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by O'Laughlin, seconded by
Second.
Scharf. You're going to have to start speaking up, Vaughn. Roll call, please.
He's going by my training.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. We are down to reports.
Denny, I have to tell you, my
Change
training is
authorization
no
request.
good.
Oh, we took that
Took that
off.
off.
We had to
Took
remove
off
that
when
from
we
the
had
agenda.
approved the agenda.
Obsolete.
The engineer this afternoon, late this afternoon, sent an email asking us to pull this off the agenda to make sure that we have more information for you, so you get more details than what we have to this point. We were supposed to get that, we did not, so I apologize for that. We waited as long as we could to get that information.
Okay, department heads. Dustin? Anything? Nothing? Mark? Doug?
Just let the council know that I brought it up at the public safety meeting today. We got our truck bids back. We got 4 bids in. We as a department will be going through them tomorrow night. So then we'll give you guys a recommendation and give you all the information. Now, we just want to make sure everybody's bidding apples for apples, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
I don't see anybody else, do you? Deb, since you've been gone, I'm going to let you start.
I don't really have anything except for I came back to cold weather where I had to shovel and snow blow. And got this wonderful cold in Iowa.
Did you come back a little early?
I must have.
Nothing else? And I'm jumping over to Mr. Vaughn.
Really?
We're going a different way.
You know, I get the impression when I start complaining about the red sidewalks that everybody thinks I'm the only one in Independence that has opposed to that. But I got an email the other day that might shore some of that up. And I'm only going to read part of it, and I'm not going to read any names except my own. It said, "Hi, Denny. Wanted to make a couple of comments. Your comments at last council meeting reported in the paper. Totally agree with the comments about city sidewalks. The decorative strip and especially the square off of the smaller squares is ridiculous. What did that add to the cost? Most importantly, the squares are not level, and it is dangerous to the older citizens. For me, I fell on Main Street a month or so ago, caught my toe on uneven section. I was lucky. I had to go to the emergency room, but no damage. Then it goes on to say, but of course, assuming you heard about so-and-so, he fell down by Harding Drug and got a brain bleed and died a week or so later. So there are other people out there that's unhappy with your red sidewalk.
What are you talking about, the smaller squares that they mentioned?
Little
What-
squares that are in the sidewalk.
Okay, but that's not the red,
That's the design of the sidewalk.
yeah, that's not the red sidewalk, Phil. I
That's
mean,
right next to it.
Yeah.
So that's all I got.
Okay. Mike?
I guess if anybody has any pull with our state senator or our state representative and would feel up to calling or emailing them about this backfill situation, that's kind of a big deal, and we would appreciate all the help, We have dogged on them relentlessly, but we're just whiny city officials. We don't count for anything, and hearing more from John Q. Public would have more meaning than probably coming from us.
Sure.
Don't happen to have their phone numbers, but I'm sure they're fairly readily available. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank everybody that came tonight and talked and expressed their concerns, and that's how we know what to do next time, is when people come and let us know what they want and don't want. It's nice to see a full audience. So many nights we sit here and nobody shows up and nobody says anything. So we tried to wear you down so you'll never come back, but thanks for coming.
Carl?
I have to agree with what you just said, Mike. I have called the numbers that are available, but I want to share with you this. When I was mayor, I was up here at the senior citizen when the governor came, and the issue was the backfill. And we got into the rollback. When they changed back into 87, they combined agriculture and residential and left it over here. Well, they wanted to have a plan, and I kept putting my hand up, and he kept going, yeah, I know I made a mistake in 87, da-da-da-da. When I kept putting my hand up, I wanted an answer to the question. And he said, well, at least do it 5 years. I said, can we get that in writing? And he said, absolutely not. And so I put my hand up again, and one of the guys, Secret Service dude, says, he'll meet you in your office right after this meeting. Well, they're in the black thing, and they're gone. So I have made some calls, just like you said, and I hope other people do too.
I'm not sure if everybody called it would make any difference.
Well,
It
Never
that's
hurts.
the only shot we got.
when it might time up for having a Twinkie on break or something.
Yeah.
But the only other thing I want to comment is I know I come on late for the council for this budget. I'm going to challenge all of us to do better at this budget. We got to be doing better. We've got to. And I know I'm so glad we're tackling this infrastructure. But we need to watch our P's and Q's a little bit better. We all do. I'm not blaming anybody, putting any fingers anywhere. But we owe it to the citizens. You hate that when you go through a budget and you have to raise a property levy. You hate to do that. We all hate to do that. But I just think we need to do a better job in the different areas. And so, no fingers pointed, nothing there. I'm a part of the council as it is now, so I'll take the responsibility just as anybody else. Thank you.
Mike?
I'd like to thank all the young people that showed up tonight. What school are you from?
Yeah.
Attaway, Attaway.
We get Eastbrook Campbell, we can't get Independence School.
That's right.
Bonnie's trying.
What?
You're trying to get the independent kids here.
Trying to get the independence.
And don't
kids?
forget, if you go to iowa.gov, you can get the email addresses of our representatives from this area and let them know that you were at a city council meeting, and it sounds like it's pretty important to get that backfill.
You don't
Make
have
that a
to be 21
class,
to write
make
it.
that a class project and all the kids write them
I'm
separately.
a teacher, so.
You are the future generation.
Are you manipulating our youth?
Coaching.
And it doesn't only affect Independence, it affects Winthrop, it affects Kowalski, you know,
Yeah.
maybe not to the same dollar amount, but it still has the same impact on their budgets.
Proportional.
Yep.
Anything else, Mike?
No, thank you.
Mr. Attorney, since you're new,
I have nothing to add to this glorious meeting, other than to say I've enjoyed it very much.
if Steve's gone, you're going to come back?
Steve apparently thought the city of Cascade's crisis tonight was more important
Oh.
than the city of Independence.
I bet they did.
So he called me and he asked me to come here, and so I did.
You didn't realize it was going to be this much fun, did you?
I did not. But I did get briefed thoroughly before I came, so.
Very good. Glad to hear that. Thank you. Gina?
The only thing I have is Susie and Amy and I would like to thank Al and Blake and Doug and Dustin for helping us with our bathroom.
Maybe we should explain that. The bathroom that's at City Hall, when I first was elected, that the women use, there was actually, was our break room. There was a microwave, a refrigerator, and food. So you'd sit on the toilet and we got rid of that, but now we have painted it. We put some new new things on the wall. It looks nice. One of the officers made comment that it looked girly, which we thought that was a compliment, actually. So yeah, that's the one we're talking about. Guys have to go to the fire department to use the bathroom. We get this one. So girls can use that one. Al?
I wanted to thank our department heads. I know it was mentioned earlier, but the work that they did on the budget this year was tremendous. Most people don't realize that they cut a little over $540,000 out of the budget from November until the one that you approved, and made a lot of other concessions. You know, we are limited on the revenue options and opportunities that we have for the city. So the work that they did was no small task, and so I want to publicly thank them. And I want to thank Susie publicly. She did help me put the very brief PowerPoint presentation together. And she did an excellent job of putting numbers together. Anybody that wants more information on what I gave you, just tried to keep it brief, snapshot, the city's website under the transparency tab has a lot more information, a lot more detail about not only our city budget, but our current budget, where the money's being spent, how it is being spent, right down to every check that the council approves. And it's all there in as much detail as you care to delve into. But they did put the budget out there as well, so there's a lot more comparative numbers for those of you that want to get deeper into it.
Oh, one thing you did, if you looked at your agendas, went on city site this time and looked at the agendas under
Public content.
Yeah, maybe you want to explain that this time.
We did try something a little bit different. Instead of sending out a separate email to the council with all the agenda notes, I put the notes directly on the agenda items under the public content. One of the comments that we got in the community survey is folks wanted to know more than just the agenda title as far as what was going on. So I tried putting it out here under public content, just a brief description or explanation of each of the agenda items. Thought it'd make it available to everybody in the community that has an interest in what's going on in city government. So I apologize if you missed your email. I wasn't trying to keep that away from you. I was just trying to make it a little bit more accessible for the public. It does require you to go to each agenda item and tap on it to see what the public content is. So if that works for you, I think it's another step in trying to improve our communication with the public and let them know what's going on. If you want us to do it differently, I'm open to suggestions, but it was just something that we thought we'd try.
And the public can get that by just going to city website and down to the calendar and on the date and hit agenda.
And the last thing I'll point out is if you remember back a little ways, there was a Blue Space report that came out, 107 pages or 109 pages of report about independence. Well, in the middle of that was a SWOT analysis that talked about some of the challenges that we're facing in independence. I do have a small group of people that have been working together to try and address some of those concerns. At some point, we have to start looking at those weaknesses or those threats and say, how can we address that? And the result of that right now is there will be a community leader program or session, if you will. We're working on a date in April to talk about what are those issues and what are some of our opportunities as a community, not as a city, but as a community to address them. So as that gets closer, I'd encourage you to watch for that. We'll talk about it again, but really it's how do we make our community a better place, whether it be red sidewalks or tree trimming or improving the sidewalks we have, whatever the case might be. There's several areas identified, and it would be a shame to take that report and ignore it. I think folks put a lot of time and effort into it and interviewed people in the community to get their feedback, and that's really what generated their SWOT analysis. So that's in process.
Anything else?
That's it.
And some of you people are on that list that he's talking about of this meeting, so you'll be getting letters or notices. It was brought up about the flag out by 6th Avenue to replace it. We don't usually buy an extra one, do we, because of the cost? Do you have any idea what that big flag costs, runs?
It's a little over $400, I think, the last time we purchased one.
Okay. So,
If memory serves, we've replaced that once since I've been on the council. Twice?
probably twice.
We're kind of running every 3 to 4 months currently.
Which is a budgeted item, which that's where some of your money goes to. So those are all things that are going to come up in the future as to what we could continue and what we can't continue. So we will look into that. I don't think I have anything else. Now, from East Buchanan Kids, now watch this part. Motion for adjournment. But see how see how many, I'll get 5 or 6 people saying yes. Motion, a second.
I second it. Let's
All
go.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. That's the best one to